Perfect. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us, and take it away.
All right, can everyone hear me? Awesome, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Victoria. This is a great opportunity. We're excited. I am Sade Dennis, Director of Market Transformation and Development here at the U.S. Green Building Council. And today I'm joined with my wonderful colleagues, Lee DeWitt and Gracie Tillman. So I'm going to kick things off, and we're going to look at our agenda. So this is a really kind of quick and dirty agenda. We're going to have introductions. We're going to learn about what is, the U.S. Green Building Council, who we are. What is LEED, the benefits of uh, green building in Maryland, and how to get started with it all. So pretty good stuff here. All right. So what's exciting about LEED and green building, let me get to my notes here, is there's a LEED certification for every project, essentially. And let me get back to my slide here. Bear with me. Bear with me here. Okay. And U.S. Green Building Council, we are building a better future where the built environment supports a healthy and sustainable world for all. What we know is that green buildings are built for the people inside of them, as well as the surrounding environment and area. And at USGBC, we're accelerating the scales of transformation of the built environment to minimize climate impacts, because buildings, of course, they provide shelter, but they're also a climate actor. Next slide, please. Absolutely. So a little bit about what we do here at the U.S. Green Building Council. There's certifications for buildings and for sites and for cities and communities, but it's also credentialing. So if I'm sure you guys are with a LEED credited either AP or Green Associate. So it's pretty exciting. So we also certify, if you will, people. We also provide education through in-person events as well as online. Hope you guys don't hear that. My lawn guys outside. That's not too disturbing. So I'm sorry about that. But also we convene events in person, namely Green Build. It's our the largest green building expo in the world, as well as ADAPT, which is the regional conference, and the work that we do for the Center for Green Schools, and of course a myriad of online education. You'll learn more about that later on in the presentation. And we also do advocacy at the federal level, state, and local. We also have a really wonderful advocacy group, and we do global advocacy. Next slide. So LEED, as I mentioned, is the world's most widely used green rating system. And unlike others, we are made for the industry, by the industry, for all kinds of projects, for folks just like you guys who work on a number of buildings, whether that's new construction or operations and maintenance. We know that with government buildings, you guys have a lot of existing stock, and every single day you do the hard work of making sure that these buildings are healthy and safe, and of course keep their value. But for 25 years, LEED certification has provided a framework for healthy, efficient, and cost-saving buildings. We like to always let people know that we have something called the triple bottom line, which is people, planet, and profit. So these buildings offer environmental, social, and governance benefits. LEED certification is a globally recognized symbol. Folks tend to think when they hear the U.S. Green Building Council that it's just for domestic projects. It's not. It is a international, really gold standard, backed by an entire industry of committed organizations and individuals, paving the way for market transformation. Next slide. So the three impact areas are ecological conservation, restoration, and decarbonization, and quality of life. And as we go through the slides, we're going to break it down a little bit more. Next slide. So here is the first impact area, decarbonization. LEED v5 provides a clear framework for delivering near zero carbon buildings. What's pretty exciting is that LEED is a pathway for things like BEPS and other goals that various local government and even private and other public sector organizations have. It's pretty exciting in terms of focusing on all forms of emissions across the building's life cycle, reducing operational carbon through energy efficient electrification, reduced peak loads, renewable energy, and selection of management and refrigerants, reducing embodied carbon through material selection and reuse strategies, reducing transportation emissions through compact, connected, transit-oriented development, which is kind of interesting. After COVID, obviously we know that a number of organizations overall went into like telework, and even some of those creative strategies all impact carbon. So some of the new requirements in LEED 5 projects will complete operational carbon projections through 2050 using tools to craft a decarbonization strategy. Now, platinum projects have a new carbon requirement, which is to push standards of leadership. The stuff. Next slide. Here's where I really get excited about the quality of life. LEED V5 recognizes design, construction, and operation decisions, understanding they have a wide spread impact on the quality of life. We focus on adaptable, resilient, healthy spaces that incorporate resilience-focused strategies to minimize vulnerabilities and ensure continuity, emphasizing and enhancing elements of the rating system that support equity and inclusivity, increasing the likelihood that more people will enjoy and care about buildings. So that kind of leads us to the profit, right? With less sick time and increased comfort in buildings. With all the requirements that all LEED V5 projects will complete a human impact assessment to understand the building's connection to users, the local community, and the supply chain. All LEED V5 projects will assess natural hazards that could impact the project site and building functionality, identifying opportunities for resilience. Next slide. The impact, which is the ecological conservation and restoration. People tend to not think about that, but you think about like things like native plants and heat island effects. Buildings have a huge, as we all know, impact on our natural environment. So LEED V5's comprehensive framework minimizes ecological harm and promotes biodiversity, conservation, and restoration on things like reducing impact on restoring natural habitats, use of land in compact and mixed use environments, rainwater management, very important. And of course, it minimizes site impacts and increased connectivity, creates pollinator pathways and reduces impact on wildlife. Things like birds, we all know about that, as well as an efficient resource use, increased density and increased mobility options for whole building life cycle assessment for building materials. It also reduces waste and planning for zero waste operations. And by the way, don't forget to ask about our True Zero Waste program. We do LEED and more, but I know we're focused on LEED today. So a new requirement for LEED V5 is that buildings must plan to achieve zero waste operations, which minimize landfill contributions and reduce pollution and extend the life cycle of valuable materials. Next slide. So now the best buildings use LEED. We have a number of case studies and projects that are already certified in LEED V5. Most of so far, because it's hit the ground last year for operations and maintenance, but we're seeing now lots of excitement for new projects. But I know that with Maryland state government, you guys have a lot of existing building stock, so we have lots of examples to show you guys, and we'll share that in our resources as well as in our post-webinar presentation in email. So next slide. Looking forward to sharing those projects with you. Now, here's the kind of cool thing. There's a LEED for every project. We talked about for new and existing spaces, buildings, homes, and communities, with things like interiors, things for like hospitality and hospital projects, public-private partnerships, and it's really exciting. Of course, these are some projects that are not in Maryland, but are across the country. And we'll be happy to kind of dig deeper if you all want to see more examples of that, because we have a lot of projects that have already been certified. So pretty exciting stuff there. Next slide. Now, here are the benefits of a LEED certified building. Talk a little bit about this, but they save money, they consume less energy, use less water, and use fewer resources, and better indoor environmental quality. Next slide. This is pretty exciting. I have some notes here that I want to share with you all that deal with the certified buildings. Of course, we talked about it being lower capital expenditures, lower operating costs, health and productivity gains through healthier, high-performing spaces, reduced risk exposure, and avoiding losses. What's interesting to note, during climate events now, a lot of municipalities are looking towards resilience hubs and ensuring that the resilience hubs are evenly certified and providing that framework to ensure that, number one, people survive these climate events, and that also government assets are protected as well. And I always want to remind people that LEED isn't just a checklist or a plaque on a wall. It's a common language between architects, engineers, between building owners and tenants, between government agencies and communities they serve. When we talk about cities, for instance, communities and or general future, we're talking about buildings as civic infrastructure. The health of our buildings is the health of our people. And Maryland is already proving year after year that we have the will, the policy, and the projects to lead. So now I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Gracie, who's going to dig into some of those details.
Actually, I'm going to take it on with Gracie, and I had a little bit of a swap this morning, so apologies for the surprise. But now that we've covered what LEED is environmental opportunities, we want to share or how you can get those. Also, for context, my name is Lee DeWitt. I'm the Senior Associate. I work with Sade for the Maryland, Virginia, and National Capital Region communities, and really appreciate your time today. But as I said, now that we've covered what LEED is, we want to talk about how the benefits are able to dive right into the rating systems practice. Projects that are pursuing LEED certification earn points for various building strategies across categories and focuses that, based on the number of points they are achieving, earns one of the 4 LEED rating systems: certified, silver, gold, and platinum. By earning LEED certification at one of these levels and putting the plaque on the building, it shows that you didn't just try to implement sustainability into your project, but that it is third-party verified that your building was designed and constructed to the high standard of environmental performance. Demonstrating accountability and transparency, which is of particular importance, especially in the public sector. Now that you've seen these certification images, I challenge you to look for these plaques, as you could be surprised where you see your next LEED certified project. As you saw on earlier slides, projects are awarded based on the LEED certification of their projects overall. The credits for LEED V5, BD, and C, new construction and major renovation projects are shown here, broken into the 3 impact areas that Sade showed earlier. 50% of the credits are directly related to decarbonization, while also attacking operational and carbon emissions, renewable energy and electrification strategies. 25% of the credits are based on quality of life, and the final 25% are based on ecological conservation and restoration strategies. All of these really make up a high impact building and lots of ways that you can engage. If you have worked on projects before, you might be familiar with this version of the scorecard, which is broken out by credit category instead of the impact area columns we showed earlier. We've talked about a few of these, so I'll go pretty quickly in terms of what the categories really impact and the ways that they can be pursued. First is the LEED certification requirements for meeting the integrated process and planning and assessments. Those have the most required focuses for the certification process, affecting human impact assessment, social context for the site, carbon assessments, and natural hazards affecting the project site. So definitely a really big impact area. Location transportation, as Sade said, really highlights how the project is engaged in the community and how people are able to travel to and from the location. Sustainable sites is about minimizing the impact of the natural environment through design strategies and minimal disturbances. The water efficiency credits really look to conserve the water indoor and outdoor, as well as prerequisites for water metering and efficiency. The energy and atmosphere credits is actually our largest category, where it deals with energy efficiency, electrification, renewable energy, commissioning, and other strategies that impact the building's overall emissions. You also must meet a minimum level of energy efficiency and refrigerant management to conduct a formal commissioning and metering plan. Materials and resources really looks to look at the embodied carbon and avoiding waste of all projects, and that they are focused on really building for materials that are especially closer to your location. The indoor environmental air quality really impacts the well-being of the people in the building throughout the project. As well, all LEED projects do not allow for smoking in the building or allow for vehicle idling nearby. This is to allow to meet minimum thresholds for air quality standards, and especially for those in construction. Finally, the points for project priorities are opportunities for regional specific innovative strategies or other opportunities not covered by LEED. All of these prerequisites and opportunities lead into what will be a successful LEED project as long as you're able to meet these requirements. We've gone through a credit, we spent enough time on the scorecard, but I do want to highlight for you the operations and maintenance scorecard, as it is a pursuant in opportunities for those that are already existing buildings. There are opportunities to really highlight and showcase the work that has already been done on a project or building, and that they can still improve. For operations and maintenance, additional credits for facility plans, green cleaning, and evaluation of ongoing performance to provide a framework for maintaining existing buildings at high levels of energy and environmental performance. There is now a newer credit called decarbonization and efficiency plans, which rewards projects that put together a strategic decarbonization plan for that building so it can achieve net zero over time, and will be useful in the context of building performance standards, as an example. LEED is not just about new construction, it's about proven solutions for existing buildings as well. We want to share some survey results that we've had from people who work in LEED certified projects. And in our surveys, it shows that 93% of those who work in LEED certified buildings are more satisfied with their job, as compared to 81% of people who work in conventional buildings that are not LEED certified. Around 80% of the employees that have worked in a LEED building have stated that the enhanced air quality improves their physical health and comfort when working in the building, and that they would choose to work in a LEED certified building again over a non-LEED building. These statistics show that while energy and carbon are key topics for LEED, it is a holistic rating system that touches on more than just that, and especially the health and well-being of the people in those buildings. As we've been sharing, we really want to emphasize why this work matters, as the building sector has contributed an estimate of 35% of the total GHG emissions in 2021, according by the DOE report released in 2024, including the 3 scopes of GHG emissions: direct on-site from the buildings, such as gas and furnace heaters in scope 1, indirect emissions from generation of electricity for buildings in scope 2, and embodied life cycle emissions from the manufacturing and transportation materials of scope 3. This is a large impact to the overall opportunities for us. If we do not decarbonize our buildings, we don't stand a chance of meeting the climate goals that we have set. Maryland has known this and is addressing it through the building energy performance standards, setting the energy caps for those, especially in the large existing buildings. And the Maryland Performance Green Building Program, which Gracie will be sharing more about in a moment, and the policies and programs, LEED is a tool in your toolbox to help you give a framework for becoming an energy efficient, healthy, and resilient low carbon project. But now I pass it to Gracie to really highlight what Maryland's been doing as a whole and the opportunities that you all have been working towards.
Thanks so much, Lee, and hi, everyone. My name is Gracie Tillman, and I'm a project manager on USGBC's advocacy and policy team. So building off of what Lee and Sade have shared, it's really important to note that LEED is already very prevalent in Maryland. Every year, USGBC releases a list of the top 10 states for LEED, ranked on the square footage of LEED certified space per capita. And we just announced that in 2025, Maryland was 8th on that list, with neighbors in Virginia and DC on that list as well. LEED is really helping states accelerate their approaches to lower carbon, healthier spaces. And the state's leadership shows that high-performing buildings are not the exception, they're the expectation, especially here in Maryland. And so in 2025, Maryland had 65 LEED certified projects totaling nearly 14.5 million square feet. Maryland has been a recognized state for LEED since 2011, which is huge. So huge congratulations to the state. And part of Maryland's leadership on LEED and green building comes from the state's high performance green building program, which has been around for years as established by the Maryland High Performance Buildings Act. The program requires eligible state-funded new construction and major renovation projects over 7,500 square feet to achieve LEED Silver certification or an equivalent certification approved by the Maryland Green Building Council. In November 2025, just a few months ago, the Maryland Green Building Council, which is a governor-appointed body, voted to adopt a new version of the program, updating the requirements to the latest version of LEED, LEED v5. The update directs projects to achieve certain LEED v5 credits in addition to achieving that LEED Silver certification. Some of these credits are enhanced resilient site design, electrification, reduced peak thermal loads, and accessibility and inclusion. So we applaud Maryland's commitment to green building through this program, and to learn more, I believe there will be another Earth Month webinar diving deeper into the program next week. And a great example of a project achieving LEED certification in accordance with that high performance green building program is Howard Community College's CalArt Foundation Complex, which houses the school's mathematics program and athletic facilities. The project went above and beyond to achieve LEED Gold certification, higher than that LEED Silver requirement for state projects. So the CalArt Foundation Complex is located in Columbia, Maryland, and achieved LEED Gold certification at the end of 2025. And we'll be sharing these slides later, so you can play around with those links later on. It's important to note too that LEED is not just at the building scale, it also recognizes cities and counties for their jurisdiction-wide sustainability performance. So we're super excited that Baltimore achieved LEED Gold for cities back in 2023, earning the maximum possible points for energy and greenhouse gas emissions performance, transportation performance, innovation, and low carbon economy. So just want to drive home that Maryland really is a national leader for green buildings, and that's also reflected in policy, with at least 24 green building policies in Maryland at the state and local government levels. This includes various requirements and incentives for LEED, such as Maryland's Sustainable Communities Tax Credit Program, which adds an extra 5% onto the 20% state income tax credit for renovating historic buildings to LEED Gold standards. Plus, as Lee mentioned, I'm sure you're already familiar with Maryland's Building Energy Performance Standards, or BEPS, which set emissions caps on large existing buildings that become more stringent over time, driving the building stock in the state to decarbonize over time. So you can find more policy examples and learn more by scanning the QR code there. And just know that you can always reach out to me or anyone on USGBC's policy team for assistance or resources related to green building policy. And with that, I will turn it back to Lee to share more about how to get started.
Thank you, Gracie. So for everyone, we really encourage you to take some time to go through these QR codes. We really want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to engage and celebrate and connect with the communities. We have multiple opportunities for you, so you can work on either just yourself or for your upcoming LEED V5 projects. The first is our USGBC website, as that is the most comprehensive way to understand our opportunities, our credentials, and our certification opportunities. You can go to our LEED V5 FAQ page to be more specific in terms of what we've already heard from the community and other organizations and asking about what has changed with LEED V5, as well as more credit-specific opportunities. They're all online education resources for on-demand and live events, and we'll be sharing a few of those upcoming events soon. And finally, connecting with an expert. So if you've already started a project and you already have questions for your LEED V5 certification, we encourage you to reach out directly through the technical customer service forms so that we can put you in the direction of the best person and staff member that can answer your questions. We prefer this so A, we know which questions you have, B, which questions have already been addressed, and C, that we really are specific in knowing your project so you don't have to deal with a lot of back and forth in the initial request. So we encourage you to take some time to look through each of these QR codes, and we'll share links in the chat when we get a moment as well. For you, if you are personally interested in becoming an accredited professional, we encourage you to take some time to follow the QR code specifically for our exams. For those that have been studying for version 4, the deadline for the Green Associate is coming soon. It is actually this month. So definitely take some time to consider. If you have not started your study sessions yet, we highly encourage you to prepare for LEED version 5. There are sometimes opportunities for boot camps, which are a much more focused study program and that have shown great results for those who are dedicated to the studying. We highly encourage you to consider this as a result, and we hopefully are able to celebrate your accomplishments in the future. We also encourage other organizations to consider, if you haven't become a member of USGBC, to do so. As a organizational member, your organization will have access to discounts on the reference guides, exam fees, course catalogs, and additional access for your staff to further education and opportunities. Depending on the membership level of your organization, the discounts and fees would be specified by the organization. So we have some upcoming USGBC events that we are hosting. On May 1st, we have our first Friday webinar, State of Play U.S. Existing Buildings Market. So we're going to take a deeper dive into these opportunities and highly encourage you to attend. It's an hour for lunch. It's a really great opportunity to attend. On May 12th through 13th, we're in Denver, Colorado for our ADAPT conference, which we highlighted earlier. ADAPT will convene hundreds of industry leaders and innovators to address the critical intersection of resilience in the built environment. We ask you to save the date for June 11th, as we'll be hosting a USGBC government symposium in the DMV area. We're very close to getting that website published, and so we look forward to hopefully seeing you there in person. We also encourage you to save a slot for us in September. We'll be hosting the USGBC Maryland Transformation Forum. Final date to be confirmed, but we hope to be in Upper Maryland. So really look forward to seeing people there. And finally, October 20th through the 23rd, as Sade shared, the largest sustainability conference, Greenbuild, will be in New York. We hope to see you there. It is a train ride away. There are actually tickets available now for purchase, and we hope to see everyone there. One that's not on this list is a partnered event that we are working with. The Montgomery County Energy Summit is actually at the end of this month, April 28th and 29th. We have a session on laboratories on the 29th. So if you're attending, we'd love to see you there. Sade and I will be in person, and we hope to connect. And with that, we're open to questions from the audience. The QR code is to our technical customer support. So if you have project-specific questions, we highly encourage you to use that. Otherwise, we're here to answer the questions in the chat and those that raise their hands.
And while we're waiting on questions, I see that, first of all, thank you, Gracie, for putting it out there to find out, to see all of our LEED professionals. I see here that Martha is a LEED AP, BD&C, Hannah is a Green Associate, and myself and Lee and Gracie all are LEED Green Associates. Lee and I both, we kind of recently got ours. I got mine, I think, like on January 2nd. I think, Lee, the end of the year, you nailed it and got it. And David, yours is coming as well. I see that you're working on your certification. It's coming soon. Are there any questions? Oh, and Amy as well. Okay, LEED AP, BD&C. I love it. It's so helpful. One of the things that I wanted to obtain beyond the certification itself, well, beyond the credential, was the knowledge. You guys work on so many amazing projects, and being able to obtain my LEED Green Associate really helped me understand the work that you guys do every single day. So it's a really great credential. People recognize what it means, and just our commitment overall as green building professionals. It's a very exciting thing. And as Lee mentioned, LEED version 5 credential beta now is on the scene. As we go through the year, we're excited to see even more people take that leap into the LEED V5 professional credential world. So pretty exciting things. And Lee has put up our timelines as well. So, we're moving forward. And one of the things that we're excited about with LEED V5 and LEED moving forward is every 5 years, we can expect a new version of LEED. We know that there's a lot happening in our external environment. And so, again, LEED provides that critical common language, that common framework, so we can all know, apples and apples, oranges and oranges, etc. So really exciting as people are doing all kinds of projects, mixed use, major retrofits, new construction, and of course, maintaining our valuable civic infrastructure, pre-existing stock. It's very important. So thank you all so much. We're waiting on any other questions that you might have. And for the organizers, Victoria, this has been great. And please let us know any questions or things that may be on the horizon, things that we can perhaps partner with and be of resources. Lee, can you talk about our first Friday webinars for?
Before I do see that we have someone with a hand raised.
Oh,
so I would like to allow them to bring up their question.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you so much to USGBC for spending your time with us today. We really appreciate it. For those of you that don't know me on the Maryland side, my name is Hannah Jubilius. I'm the Deputy Director for Energy and Sustainability in DGS, in Design and Construction. And I do have a question here, but I will start with a comment, which is just to remind our other Maryland folks that for new buildings that are subject to Maryland's High Performance Green Building Program, LEED Silver equivalent is the standard we build to, and therefore LEED is also a pathway of that. So yeah, thanks for, I know you highlighted in this, but just wanted to really call attention to that connection there to Maryland. And I will say, I know a lot of folks are familiar with like the LEED plaque outside of buildings or that sort of thing, but which is kind of the more obvious tie. And I think a lot of people associate that with the like resource or environmental or efficiency benefits. But I'm glad you all, of course, did include indoor air quality, or IAQ is the acronym we use for that. But I often find that it's more difficult to communicate to occupants the I would say like value of indoor air quality, or conveying, the things that have been done that do support indoor air quality. So I was just hoping you all could share a little bit more about that and maybe highlight some of the common attributes that improve that folks might be seeing in buildings.
I'll take a first stab at that, by the way. And that's a great question, great point you brought up, Hannah. A lot of times, like dashboards and things like that are important. So, for instance, schools, teachers have used it as a means of like educating the students. I mean, this really just shows at scale why education and engagement is important. You guys know the value of this work, but to like the larger public and even folks who are inside of many of our buildings may not totally appreciate that because it's just not in our face. And so things like education and engagement, but like I said, dashboards, we have in our office, it's like a dashboard of sorts, and it's in a frame, and it kind of has like the usage of our energy, et cetera, and all those different factors. And that's been helpful because it's a means of conversation and such. So there are many different ways I think that at scale we can kind of lift up the knowledge base of projects and things like this as well. I think that green things, if you will, aren't just niche; they're really vital to our everyday operations. And I think that ideas that you all may have, and certainly we can share some ways, because there are many ways that we can inform and educate and kind of bring to light the value of that scorecard. That's my first stab. Lee.
I did share in the chat, there is a LEED V5 in the next big shift in indoor air management. We had published an article back in September that really highlighted some of the management tools that Sade had mentioned, especially with our office, as we have publicly available knowledge to our own staff and can QR code that information. The other thing about looking at IAQ is really looking at different ways of what you're measuring and the impacts that come from it. I wish that this had been, this presentation had almost been a week earlier because we had a First Friday webinar specifically on IAQ and those updates. Thankfully, it is recorded, so I think there will be an opportunity on the educational platform for you to have future access to that presentation. So there are definitely ways that we can engage and really highlight those. Sade and I will also note that we can reach out to you more specifically, Hannah, to get those specific materials for those opportunities. The biggest impact that, like we said, is the improved physical health and comfort of those buildings. You can see that from some of the past building performance standards or buildings that were done during some of the more very tight enclosed spaces, that building sickness was really a high impact piece. And so when people stepped out of a building, they felt very differently than when they were inside the building and felt slightly ill or unwell. So definitely taking those into consideration really can impact. It's questions of, if you're in a healthy building, do you have a headache when you leave the building or when you've been sitting there for an hour? Instead, no, you feel fresh, you still feel revitalized, even if you've been in there for multiple hours. That's one way I've personally thought of it, is if I stepped into the building, will I feel good the moment I leave that building? That is a personal example for myself. I hope it helps answer some of your questions.
Looks like Martha, you have a question.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, it is a challenge. It's always a challenge when it's the absence of something bad for people to recognize that. When there's bad air, people know it. But when everything is fresh and good, it's just part of the environment. And I do think some of the other IAQ items like lighting, daylighting, sound control, things like that, sometimes you can have a bigger impact on the story for occupants. My question was, as LEED version 5 comes out, as we're dealing with, here in the state, the building energy performance standards, we're just trying to get our arms wrapped around the cost implications of these things. So I was just curious if USGBC has done any any calculations about what, additional costs might come into play as a result of the additional prerequisites and things like that for LEED version 5?
I can share that, to my knowledge, we don't have that information yet, but we've heard that question come up very frequently. And I know we're looking at potentially hiring a consultant who could help us answer that question of that cost differential, especially between LEED v4 and LEED v5. So don't have anything right at this moment, but hope to have more soon.
Something to add to the FAQ page, right?
Absolutely. I will point back that we've had past versions of LEED also been showcased for their cost savings and implications from V4. There were presentations from Cushman & Wakefield, as well as some of the other organizations, and we can look to have those included. There is a perception of the immediate cost in some budgets, so definitely take that into consideration. It may seem on an upfront cost there might be some higher than expected expenses, but that is to ensure that the efficiency and planning and management of those buildings succeed. So it could be you're saving in the initial purchase of, say, an HVAC system, but that HVAC system will only last you 5 years without an extensive high cost maintenance engagement. So it's taking comparison of initial versus timeline consideration. And so that's what LEED really wants to challenge all projects to focus on when they're working on their projects, their plans, and the goals that they're setting for their work.
Fantastic. I love a good look at a total cost of ownership approach. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. Next question, Maya.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this presentation. I am so new to green purchasing, so sorry if these are obvious questions. And I'm with Baltimore City Department of General Services, by the way, with the facility side. So I was wondering about the LEED certification for, or LEED in existing buildings. Are there any policies from other states that you all have seen for existing buildings? And if so, where are those? Because I'm looking at the map and I see the ones for Baltimore City are just related to new construction.
Yeah, so definitely historically, most green building policies we've seen have targeted new construction and major renovations. But definitely more recently, existing buildings have been the priority. Probably the most common existing buildings policy would be building performance standards, which Maryland does have. But as we noted, that really only targets greenhouse gas emissions or energy consumption. It doesn't really include all the holistic benefits of green building, like you can see here on your screen now. So we have recently seen more LEED for existing buildings policies, but it is still pretty new. So I think there's a slide here with the link to our public policy library that has, I think, over 500 policies across the US. And I'm happy to do a quick search to see which states and local governments have LEED for existing buildings policies. None from Maryland are jumping to my mind right now, but I'm happy to help search for those and just kind of help make the case for policies tackling existing buildings. I think the ones we've seen in the past typically start with some sort of analysis of your existing buildings portfolio, maybe benchmark your existing buildings energy consumption, and then figure out kind of the highest priority buildings to target for something like LEED O&M for existing building certification. So probably benchmarking would be the most common place to start.
Thank you. And then a follow-up question to that potentially, well, maybe not follow-up, but I'm wondering if there's any kind of like credit that like the city would be able to file if we, let's say for our new roofing contract, if we integrate some language that is green purchasing, can we turn that around and say, hey, LEEDs, we did something in line with your silver certification. Do we get any kind of incentives locally?
Yeah, I guess I would answer that by saying we encourage policies that take kind of a whole building approach. So policies that would incentivize or require that full LEED certification, looking at that full LEED scorecard. That being said, there are many policies that require or incentivize LEED certification as well as direct specific credits in LEED. I know Maryland's high performance green building program is one example where they require that LEED silver certification as well as specific credits in LEED to comply with the program. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you just to play around with the scorecard, especially that kind of materials and resources credit category, as that has a lot of alignment with purchasing and procurement. So yeah, I would just encourage you to take a look at that and see what credits matter the most to Baltimore and just general policies in Maryland.
Thank you.
Awesome. You guys have provided so much fantastic information. I very much appreciate your time and just coming out to speak to us today. I was going to ask how often you guys update with the different versions, so I was excited that that was already answered. It does it seems like, you know, kind of every 5 years or so.
Project certification will be more focused to be every 5 years. So LEED version 5 came out in 2025. So be looking closer to 2030 for what would potentially be LEED version 6. One thing that we will note with the way that we process our certification is that it is for the community, by the community, with the community, is that we have a lot of technical groups that come together earlier in the process to review everything that is done in the current version of LEED, discuss a lot of potential opportunities for improvements, greater rise to the standards that we set, as well as public comment is given for all the members of the community. So we really encourage you to be individual members and organizational members as an opportunity to provide further input to what would be the future versions of LEED. So it is a very focused but engaged system for us. And so it's not a quick decision. It is a very hard thought process for everyone.
That is fantastic. You know what? I think the other big takeaway that I learned today, I did not know that you guys certified cities, or like, I had no idea. I thought it was just kind of solely buildings. So to find out that Baltimore has a LEED certification was incredibly surprising to me. That is really just great. And just kind of in general, how many cities are certified?
That is a great question. The exact number we have to get back to you, but there are a number of communities and cities. So there's cities and there's communities like campus wide and business improvement districts, and a few in Maryland. So Howard County is a LEED platinum for communities. Frederick is also, I think there's a city in the Frederick area, and of course DC, as we know, but also a number of LEED certified city halls. I mean, so you know, Maryland, I would say Maryland is a LEED country, if you will, but lots of different areas beyond buildings are LEED certified. Number of parks in Montgomery and Prince George's County are LEED certified parks, which is pretty cool. Yeah, but we can get that list to you, Victoria, because there are a number of LEED certified cities overall. We have a great vice president of LEED for Cities, Hillary Villanor. I'm saying that right, but you guys don't already know her. She's amazing work, and we're happy to actually be working with her team for our impact symposium that Lee mentioned earlier, June 11th in College Park, by the way. In College Park, their City Hall is a LEED, I want to say LEED Gold, which is pretty exciting. And we'll be doing the symposium in a green, in a LEED building, in a Discovery building, which is a public-private partnership over at the University of Maryland. So great question. And in fact, the symposium will be a public sector. So we're going to be all up in talking about those public buildings and structures. Yeah.
That is awesome. And then just kind of one other, you guys probably don't have the number off the top of your head, but how many LEED Platinum certifications have you guys given out?
Oh my goodness. You mean since the beginning of LEED?
Well, I mean, I imagine you probably don't have a ton that are certified Platinum with V5 yet. But you know.
Well, we have a number of, so a lot of operation O&M projects, and that number, I don't have the top of my head, but they are gaining and counting, and we get the number to you. I mean, maybe we can find out on this call, but a number of them, and they're coming into the registration side. And like I said, a number of them have already, we did an article on our website. We also put it on our LinkedIn that looked at some of the 2025 at that time, and now the 2025 and 26 LEED V5 buildings all over the world. I mean, some really stunning projects. We can put that in the chat in a couple seconds here, but yeah, great question.
Yeah. Shad, I did, while you're speaking, just look this up in our project directory, and yeah, there are over 12,000 LEED Platinum projects. I will have to narrow it down to find how many are in Maryland specifically, but yeah, definitely a ton.
That is awesome.
Nice work there.
Right. Well, so I asked because we had done a tour of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation building, and they were the first LEED Platinum building. So I was just curious that, you know, kind of how much that certification, you know, has grown from there to now.
That's a good fun fact, by the way. I was going to ask that. That's a good fun fact. That is the first LEED Platinum project overall, like period. Yeah, yeah. So Maryland, you know, we have some bragging rights here in the state.
We certainly try. We certainly try.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to turn off the recording.